There is an easier way to make your chord transitions sound smoother. And it's all based around what fingers you use and if the next chord you're about to play has any fingers on the fretboard in common. Let me show you what I mean. Let's look at the transition from C major to F major. Right, so here's the C major chord, sounding rather lovely. And here's the F major chord. And as you can see with this version of the F major, I'm using 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers. And I'm using this particular way because of the finger that the C and this F major have in common. And it's this third finger, this one right here. Because if you see the C, and then if I go to the F, I'm going to tuck in this fourth finger on the third fret of the D string, and then I'm going to shift over the second finger onto the second fret of the G string, and simultaneously I'm going to flatten my first finger there on the E and B string on the first fret. And that's the key here, I think, that makes this chord transition a little bit smoother. So I'm going to go C, tuck in the finger, move the second across, flatten the first. Obviously when coming back, I'm going to take off the fourth finger, I'm going to move this back to the second fret of the D string, and then only be playing the first fret of the B string. If flattening that first finger there is a little tricky, what you can do to a kind of a little cheat is you can not flatten it. And so basically what I mean is this: so as you make the change from the C and then you tuck in that finger, you put that finger there, you can just keep the first finger where it is, but you have to make sure that you dampen the first string, the top E string. And then when you go back, make sure you're not dampening that first E string when you're playing the C. So it's a bit of a cheat, but it's a way that you can play this F chord. Here's G and here's C. And you'll notice that this version of C is using all 4 fingers. And I love this particular way actually, because it's a nice full sounding chord. And so from G to C, so G to C, the finger that's in common is this third one here, and that one keeps you nicely on the fretboard as you're changing. Now let's look at C, and you can use 2 versions of C for this particular transition. So you could use the full 4 finger version, or you can use the 3 finger version like so. It makes no difference. And we're going to the A minor with this one. And the thing is, with this you'll have these 2 fingers, the first finger and the second finger. They're the ones that are anchored on the fretboard. Those are the ones you keep where they are. So whether you're using this one or this one, you will just keep them there. But here you will be sliding this finger back up the fretboard a little bit so that this third finger can sneak its way into the second fret of the G string. So like this, like that. And then when you go back to C, this finger will slide up a little closer to the fretboard, sorry. Then you'll see that first finger doesn't move at all. G to E minor. And we're going to have a look at 2 different ways of playing these chords. So here's the G and here's the E minor. And the finger that's in common between these 2 chords is this one right here. It's the second finger. Okay, so as you're playing your G, and when you switch, transition, change to E minor, keep the finger on, right? Keep the second finger on, But one thing you're going to have to do in order to get this finger in here, tucked in nicely in there, is you will need to move this finger up the fretboard a little bit. So away from this fret. So as you can see, look, there's the G. As I change, that finger moves back, and then I can fit that finger in. Like so. Now another way of playing G is with the first, second and third finger, like this. And another way of playing E minor is with the first and second finger. So instead of having the second finger as an anchor, you've got this finger here, the first finger, and it's doing exactly the same. So when you change from G to E minor, the first finger will move back a little bit, giving enough space for the second finger to come in. And the reason why you're moving back and forward with both sets of shapes is if you don't, and you put the right, and you play that finger like that, if it's not tucked in but nicely behind on that second fret, you will have some kind of buzzing. It's pretty horrible. So make sure you slide back a little bit with both shapes. So let's have a look at F to D minor. Now the F chord can be played a couple of ways, and you know I often use this one with 4 fingers. I quite like that fuller sound. You can also use F with only 3 fingers, so you then have the third finger on the 3rd fret of the D string, but it's not as full as this with the 4 fingers, but it's a great beginner's way of playing this. However, you can, whether you use this one or this one, when changing to D minor, the finger that they have in common is this one right here, the second finger. And this is the one that you can use to kind of anchor yourself onto the fretboard. So if you're going from F to D minor, keep the finger, the second finger on the 2nd fret of the G, and then lift everything else off. And put the first finger down on the 1st fret of the top E string, and then depending on how you play D minor, you might use your 3rd finger or you might use your 4th finger, which is the one I use, and it will go on the 3rd fret of the B string. I find it much easier to use my 4th finger because this one I find it a little harder to stretch. And then going back, keep that finger on the fretboard and then put the rest of the F chord around it. So once again, here's the F. Keep the 2nd finger down, take everything off, then put the rest of the D minor chord onto the fretboard. Before we go into the next chord change, transition, switch, whatever you want to call it, let's do a bit of practice, shall we? So let's just try changing from C major to F major, and we're going to play 1 bar of C and 1 bar of F and repeat this a few times. And remember that in a bar we'll be playing 4 strums. And keep this nice and simple. We're just going to play 4 down strums. Okay, nothing complicated in the rhythm because we're focusing on the transitions. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's have a go at F to D minor. And remember, you can use either the 4-finger version of F or the 3-finger version of F. And as for the D minor, you'll either use your third finger or your fourth finger on the third fret of the B string. But remember, the thing that they have in common is the second finger on the second fret of the G string. That's the finger you'll keep rooted as you change between those two chords. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now a little bit more complicated, we're going to use three chords. We're going to play C to F to D minor to F and then start again. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's G and E minor repeated a number of times. Use whichever version of the G or E minor chord. And we'll keep this nice and slow with a simple down strum, okay? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's a practice progression, and it's just G to C. 1, 2, 3, 4. C, G, E minor, C. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now it's getting a little more complicated because we're going to be using G, C and A minor. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's have a look at E minor to F. This one is slightly different to the way we've been looking at the other changes like C to F and F to D minor, for example, because here's the E minor shape. Now to go to F, and we're going to use the 3-finger version of F, and if you look at the two chords side by side, right, what you'll see is that when we change, we can keep this finger, the 3rd finger, on the fretboard, but it's going to slide up. When you're going this way, it's up. It's going to slide up 1 fret. So you're going to keep it on the fretboard, slide up 1 fret, and then you're going to form the rest of the chord around it. And you'll have your 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, and you'll have your 1st finger flattening the 1st fret of the B string and the top E string. And then going down to the E minor, slide down 1 fret and then put the chord back on. So let me show you again. So here's your E minor. Take off the 3rd finger, slide up 1 fret, and then form the rest of the chord on to get that sound. Let's have a go at the E minor to F, and remember with this one, the 3rd finger is going to be sliding up 1 fret to the 3rd fret of the D string to form the F chord, and then sliding down 1 fret to the 2nd finger of that D string to make to form the E minor chord. And for this one, we'll be using the 3-finger version of F. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now let's try a 4-chord transition. We're going to go from G to E minor to F and then D minor and then repeat. So G, E minor, F, D minor, repeat. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so well done everybody. Now what I want you to do is go and practice. So you can either play along with the practice progressions that we've just done, or click the link here, or is it here, or in the description down below, and practice along with some songs. I've got a few beginner guitar songs that you could use that practice the G chord, the C chord, the E minor chord, etc. So give them a go. So thanks for joining me today and happy strumming.